Now for a 12 News legal deep dive, where we take a look at some of the biggest legal cases making headlines in Arizona and across the country. First, a bombshell in Arizona's so-called fake electors case, as Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays was delivered a stunning setback from the new judge in this case. Under what's known as an anti-SLAPP law, Mays could now be forced to prove that her criminal prosecution of the Republican defendants was not a political attack on their free speech rights. The 16 remaining defendants are charged with 9 felonies each for allegedly participating in a criminal conspiracy to overturn Donald Trump's defeat in Arizona's 2020 presidential vote. These defendants include former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani and former Arizona Republican Chair Kelly Ward. Criminal defense attorney Hector Diaz of Diaz Law joins me now. Hector, this seems to be a big blow for the state and somewhat of a boost for the defendants. Why is this so significant?
Yeah, I think if, some of these lawyers are probably high-fiving each other in terms of, they, filed that motion to dismiss, saying essentially these charges were filed not because we committed any criminal acts, but really to stifle the fact that we were promoting Donald Trump and promoting, our First Amendment speech. And, the AG now, the burden essentially shifts now, right? To be clear, the court hasn't granted the motion to dismiss, right? The charges are still there.
Right.
But the judge is saying, there's something here. I've read the motions filed by the defense. There's an issue here. And you know what? Now, AG, you need to come back and tell me what were the acts? What were the crimes that were committed? And, I read some of the press briefings and some of the statements by our Attorney General, and I think she was really surprised that the court ruled without a hearing, just ruled simply what we call from the bench.
And it seemed as though, yes, exactly, that the judge had already made up his mind.
For sure. He read the briefings, and, that happens from time to time.
Right.
I think this is, what was surprising is how significant of a case this was.
Yeah.
That the judge just simply said, now, you know what, AG, now the burden's on you. Come and show me, lay out for us the criminal acts that occurred, and that it really was these acts, or what you allege wasn't to just simply limit First Amendment speech.
Right. Okay, so we know that Mays plans to appeal. What do you think the outcome will be?
I think that they're going to challenge this in a special action, saying, that the court should have had a hearing, number one. Number two, and lay out, we were able to obtain in a grand jury that indicted these defendants, and they indicted them after presenting legitimate facts that there were, a filed forged slates of electors that were submitted, that really has nothing to do with First Amendment speech. Rather, it has to do with real criminal actions that occurred.
Right, and trying to prove that. All right, let's get to our next local case here, the murder trial of a Tempe mom accused of killing her 2 children in 2021. It started this week. Yui Inoue reportedly told police that voices told her to kill her kids, who were just 9 and 7 years old. Prosecutors say Inoue and her then-husband were in the process of getting a divorce. He was supposed to have full custody of the kids, and she was booked to go back to Japan days after the murders happened. She has pled not guilty. Hector, what's interesting is throughout the investigation, there's been a lot of questions about her mental health. In fact, in the past, there were reports that she had even harmed her son with some scissors, but apparently the judge ruled that it's not a topic that could come up at trial. Why not?
I think they litigated this issue. They're probably the defense likely had her submitted for some kind of mental health evaluation, and after a review of that information, the court found that really it wasn't relevant, or that if this information or evidence was presented, it'd be prejudicial to the jury. So there had to have been some kind of a preliminary assessment on her mental health.
Okay.
And after that assessment, the court ruled that it's not relevant, it's not coming in, because either the court felt it wasn't legitimate, or that either the defense was trying to make an argument that was frivolous for some sort.
So then what would the defense be?
I had a chance to kind of read some of the preliminary opening statements, and I thought the state came out right out of the gate and said this was committed because she was sheer anger, that these are horrific acts. And the defense's opening statement was basically, sit, wait, watch, which is, we're going to force the state to their burden of proof. And so there really wasn't, from what I've read, there wasn't really a theory of why this occurred, or somebody else committed it, or like we just spoke, insanity.
Right.
So it really, I think what you're going to see is really a defense that's laid out, which is, did the state prove its case?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting that there would not be some kind of a strong defense out of the gate from them.
It happens sometimes. It does. And you know, one of the things to point out is that the defendant has the right to go to trial. They, you know, and so maybe a plea was made in this case, and that defendant said, "I'm not taking this plea."
Okay, so this case, it's expected to wrap up by next week, end of next week. What do you think will happen?
I mean, I think the forensics, I think if her prior history of, you know, what you laid out earlier of her, you know, conduct and treatment of her children, some of the other things, I even read she had some kind of aggravated assault involving a police officer. If some of this stuff comes in, I think it's going to be a very quick verdict, but we'll have to see.
Okay. All right. Hector, thank you so much. I know you're going to stay with us in our next half hour for another legal deep dive. This time we're going to look into new developments in the murder case of United Healthcare CEO.